We're going
What's
live.
up, everyone? Welcome back to the Trainman Reports. This is episode 30. That's been 30. That's right. There's 29 other Trainman Reports. This is a show
Wow.
that covers local NDG stuff and other various topics that's related to NDG. And sometimes it's also related to other people, like everybody needs electricians. That's not necessarily an exclusively NDG thing. But all the peripheries of the conversation end up being about the neighborhood that we all know and love. So this one's for you, and if you are out there in this beautiful city of NDG and want to participate in the Trainman Report, hit us up. Today, my name is Holden Stefan Roy. Joining me, we have Alex Montagano, and we have the fine fellows from Electrika Inc., whose names I forgot because I was troubleshooting.
It's John McElligott
Yeah,
and Robert Bowles.
Boyles.
So
Yeah,
Boyles,
Did I say that right? Right?
Robert Boyles. Yeah,
Boyles.
like
Excellent. Fantastic. Very honored to have you on the show today. Thank you so much for joining us.
thank you.
Back to you, Holden.
yeah. So this is basically going to be a little discussion, and if y'all have questions, curiosities, always feel free to leave a comment, and we will do our best to integrate that into the show when we catch it and ask relevant questions. If it's super unrelevant, we'll wait till it makes sense to ask. On that note, I'm kind of like super excited for this episode because sometimes you start seeing some rumblings up on the internet like, why is there constant power outages going on inside this beautiful area known as Notre Dame de Grace? Which personally, when my American homies see me complaining about it, they question if sometimes NDG is a third world due to the constant level of power outages happening here. And while I explain it's not, it is sometimes feeling absurd. But then, with the current changing world and increasing heat, I was like, is this going to get worse and stuff? So honestly, I was like, who would know more than we know about this? People who work with electricity.
Yeah.
Electricians.
Excellent. That's why we have, John and Robert on the show. So before we get into did I say that wrong? Did I say that wrong? No, I got you guys right.
Yeah,
You're right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So moving ahead, I'm bad with names. I'm phonically challenged that way. So continuing on, today I have the honor of being on the show as Alex Montagano, owner operator RestoreMontreal.com. I'm a general contractor. I know John, and I run into him at the dry cleaners on Sherbrooke. Michael Katnick, Ecological Cleaners. Always a good time. He is an NDGer from what I know. You are an NDGer, aren't you? Aren't you, John?
yes,
Excellent.
yeah.
Fantastic. All right. And just to give some quick community updates before we get into the electrical conversation, it's been a very interesting, time in NEG these days. We have obviously the Terrebonne bike path, which has been a sort of source of controversy in the community, and they are in the process now of erasing lines, and that's going to happen. So that's the update there. I saw them personally out there with the equipment and erasing it during the weekend. And the next big issue that's been circulating online is like, okay, no mow May is over, and the city supposedly is going to get to cutting the grass in our parks, which has started. Girard Park has been cut. The grass has been cut. So,
Oh, has it?
yep,
There
it
has been
has.
progress on
It
this front?
has been cut. I can testify to that. So, and then the Wheel Club Friday. So you got Steel Whale Bluegrass, Folk and Country. That's Wheel Club is our local live music venue. We told Mr. Schwartz there that we would be giving him plugs. And Saturday we got Matt Large. He is Matt Large presents. This is what this is all about. Ray Laguerre and Alan Jeffries Bluegrass Performance. So that's at the Wheel Club Saturday night. Mariposa, you have the 30 Night Blues, and that's the community update at this point in time. So let's get into it. So we are fascinated with the idea of having a show talking about electricity and the fun things that electrical, the current, provides us in our day-to-day lives. It's become more and more important. Now we're basically running our automobiles, our EVs off it, electric vehicles. There's electric bikes. We've seen a really, in my mind, a transformation in terms of different types of energy sources or appliances in our homes that are driven by electrical power. Um, and this comes combined with the fact that NEG is an older neighborhood, right? Built in the 1900s, 2030s. And a lot of the homes weren't initially designed for that type of load, right? When I bought my house on King Edward, it had the original 1937 entry, believe it or not, with the glass fuses and only had a 30 amp service. Couldn't even run a dryer in the house. And it has knob and tube. So let's start with introduction of John and Robert from Electrika. John, you're the owner, right? And I'm assuming that this is a business that you created. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so Electrika, we're your complete home electrical heating and cooling. We just cater to residential homes and condos. We don't do construction, we're big in service. We do a lot of service work, and we're servicing the Greater Montreal now for just over 20 years. And the big thing for us is, I'm all about doing it once and doing it right. And I go to so many homes that they've paid once, twice, three times. It's still not done to code, So I put a big emphasis on that, on doing it to code, doing it right. I'm a firm believer as a licensed professional. Every day you go out, it doesn't matter if someone is not looking over your shoulder. You just do it to code, and that's it. So, I always tell the team that, just act like when you're going out the front door, the inspector is coming in the back door inspecting your work. And, that's the mindset, we instill in our team here. And, we invest a lot into training our people. And, if you call yourself a licensed professional electrician, well, there's a certain amount of education you got to have and knowledge. And, we try to keep them all tip top. And that's why even in our facility, we have our own training room, lab, everything, honing in on their skills all the time and bringing that to our clients. For me, making sure the clients are getting what they pay for. And yeah, so this is a big part of what we do.
Yeah, I noticed Electrika out there. I've seen your men at work, and I have to say, when you come to a job site and you guys get to work, they get to work and they know what they're doing, and they're very efficient. So I say that from experience and observation. So you obviously have an excellent reputation in the industry and in the neighborhood of servicing our electrical needs. That's for sure. Yeah, and back on that, when you say, we had this kind of conversation prior to the show talking about how a lot of NDG homes have some of the old knob and tube wiring, or for that matter, they have, the double, you have the wiring that has the neutral and the hot wire, but there's no ground, right? And you raised, the issue, which is, is true, that this wiring system is not grounded and is a risk to a lot of the electronics that we use today. You want to talk up to that a little bit?
Okay. Yeah. So basically, the knob and tube, like you said, the homes were built in NDG.
Right.
Some of them back as far as the 1900s, right? That's when.
Yeah. Along the track in the Maisonneuve, yeah, they're old. They're in the 1900s, yes.
So, and Montreal's a very old city in total.
Mm-hmm.
I would say 90% of the homes that we go into throughout Montreal, and especially NDG in the older areas, there's that haven't been rewired or carried out any electrical work at all. Percent of the homes that we're going into will have this knob and tube wiring. Knob and tube is basically knobs which are fixed to the side of your joist
in between the roof, fixed to the side of the joist, with a cable with a bit of hessian wrapped around it, and tubes that get put in through the joist for the cables to run through. There's no grounding systems in this.
No, no.
A live and a neutral cable. And from a safety point of view, for anything that you do in these homes, if we come across knob and tube, we're not allowed to work with that anymore. You're not allowed to modify it, junction box, connect onto it.
Yes.
In any shape and form.
Yes.
We bring it to our customers' attention. We will show them so they visually get to see the knob and tube.
Yes.
We will communicate and let them know about the importance of having it replaced. And yeah, it's a case of
so at that point it becomes more of a construction project rather than a service project when you have to like do all the wiring again.
Yeah, and one of the key things, when we go into these situations, right, everyone has a budget. So, we could go to, say, Mrs. Smith's home, and she will ask us, she has this beautiful chandelier, and she'll say, okay, John, install this in my ceiling. And we find out it's knob and tube. Well, it's against the law for me to put up that fixture and attach it to the knob and tube wiring. And, customers get upset and says, well, we'll find someone else to do it. Yes, you will. Believe me, you will find someone to do it. But, we're following the code, insurances and everything, we're heavily regulated, and we have to follow all laws, codes, and regulations. I'd love to put it up for Mrs. Smith, but, what we have to do is we have to take a grounded circuit from the panel to the switch that controls that light, and then bring a grounded wire from the switch up to the light. She doesn't have to rewire her home, but, for us to carry out that installation in a safe and secure manner, this is how we have to do it. And right. And then, we explained to Mrs. Smith, that grounded circuit that she paid for to bring it from the panel to that switch point. Then when she decides to do other lights, we can tee off of that, extend off of that, at least that initial cost of getting that circuit is over with. And then we can, the next project will be less expensive for her. And we know the painstaking, effort that goes into rewiring, and you got to paint and do cosmetic work. We understand that, but like knob and tube is over and has been over for a long time. In a home today, just in the kitchen, you could be drawing 60, 70 amps in your kitchen alone. Before your whole home was running on 60 amps.
Right.
And, people like, we spend a lot of time educating our clients on this, spend your money, but, you have to spend it the right way. And, we go into homes where they've had new kitchens and they're tripping breakers, and you just had a new kitchen installed. It's because the wiring wasn't done right and professionally.
Yeah, I see that a lot. What makes me nervous about knob and tube is that, there's a case that can be said if you're feeding only lights and there's original Art Deco light fixtures in the house and everything, that system can continue to exist. But the risk of that is that what always I find is the troublesome point is when people start pulling circuits off it, right? Like a switch box, whatever the case, and they pull another circuit. That to me is a no-no. And what I also find is
I
that
have no idea what you're talking.
Well, it
just
means
assume
that
some of us are definitely not 100% following this.
What it means is you have the existing knob and tube, right? And
also, Tassi says they're tuning in and they're saying hi to John and Robert.
Awesome.
Hey,
So that means that if you have the existing knob and tube network, you decide, oh, I want to put another plug on this and connect it to the knob and tube, or I want to like attach appliance to that. To me, that's a real no-no. And the other big thing with knob and tube, which is very different than the wiring systems that we use today, is that you could have the hot wire, which is the wire that's actually carrying the current to the box, right? It could be on one side of the room, following the knob and tube porcelain tube system as Robert explained it, and then the neutral can be on the complete other side, 10 feet away, right? So you have to be very careful when you decide to snip those, because you could basically cut off the whole upper story of your house on the lights and all the switches. I'm sure you've experienced that yourself, Rob, at some point in time.
Do a good job if you snip it and get rid of it. Believe me.
Yeah, it forces the customer to change it all because they don't know it's all the system's black now.
Awesome.
But I will say that when you renovate a kitchen as a general contractor, I do a lot of kitchens, a lot of bathrooms, and to me, that is non-negotiable. If you're going to put a bathroom, you're going to have heated floors, you're going to have convection heat, and you got a ventilation. The ventilation, technically, the code is supposed to be on its own circuit all by itself, right? And so these are like, these are non-negotiables with me, because you're not going to spend all this money on a bathroom and kitchen and not upgrade the electricity. It just doesn't make any sense, right? So yeah, that is definitely a characteristic of the homes in NEG.
It's kind of like when you're upgrading your computer and you get a lot of better stuff and you just need to get a better power source, because all of a sudden each of your components of your computer are just drawing too much power and you burn that out and it doesn't turn on no more.
Yeah, I mean,
but
clean circuit size. That's, when you got sensitive equipment, clean dedicated circuits, which is installed correctly, without any interference of any other cables, which is installed to the code, and then backed up with maybe something like a surge arrestor. I'll just add that in. I'm not too sure if you're familiar with surge arresters.
I am. UPS, uninterruptible power supplies for brownouts.
I mean,
that's correct.
I could kind of like picture like maybe what it is, but I don't really know what it is.
Well, may I, Robert? They have. Yeah, I'll let Robert answer. Go ahead, Robert. Sorry. I like to talk.
So for me, we may be more familiar with the extension plugs that we get, the bar extension plugs.
Yeah.
Buy your cheap regular extension plugs, or you can buy ones that are protected with a surge. So basically, the surge is any surges that are on your electricity. Your circuits are always under attack. There's little Mike Tyson hooks on all your computer equipment all the time. You plug in your vacuum into the outlets. You ever seen your lights dim ever so slightly, or you turn on your macerator, the lights dim ever so slightly? There's little surges. They're little attacks on all of your electrical equipment.
Your Hoover.
Yeah, the Hoover. Yeah, in the UK.
Remember when you were a kid and your mom was vacuuming and the TV would all go staticky?
Exactly. All that knob and tube wiring.
No, I had nothing to do with mom and tube wiring. That was the interference, guys. Come on. It's different.
Get these extension bars that have this. We do recommend them wherever you've got obviously nice important equipment, TVs, your mobiles, the laptops, all of that. But what we install is a surge arrestor that goes next to the panel, and that now is a whole home protection.
Oh, you do it at the panel.
Yeah, we do.
So are you protecting it from the, now this is, you're protecting us from the hydroelectrical network grid, right?
It comes down from hydro, where
right.
or anything like that. If you can imagine when they re-energize that power,
right,
massive flow of electricity coming down the line,
right,
come down your service entrance, it comes into your panel,
right,
all the breakers are turned on, right, that flow, that wave goes out through all your circuits, all down the cables that feed your lights, your sockets, your washing machine, your fridge, your stove. And at the end of it, what have you got? All your precious equipment. Right. Yeah. And that's like a Mike Tyson right hook there.
So that's a Mike Tyson from Quebec doing the uppercut there. Is that what that's all about? Or is that a lower, what is that, a left hook or right hook?
Couple of hooks.
A volley.
But that surge is like a sponge for your electricity. So anything that's flowing in and out from outside to inside, this surge arrestor just absorbs all that electricity.
That's awesome. I didn't know that. I didn't know that piece of equipment even existed.
And we've got a couple of options that we've been giving out to providing to our customers.
Mhm.
It was actually a home protection month for Electrika last month.
Okay.
Give a bit of a discount to all our customers on surge arresters.
Mhm.
And it's something that we're going to bring up maybe at the later date for any of customers listening onto this podcast. We're happy to extend that discount. So
Wow. Geez, listen to the Trainman report and save money.
it's 15% discount on surge arresters.
How much is the discount right now? Excuse me?
50.
15.
15%. So mention the Trainman report and get an extra 15% off your installation of surge arresters. Yeah, you know, I spent time in the computer business, and what we sold, and I actually sold this equipment. We sold what we call UPSs, uninterruptible power supplies, and they dealt with the surges, of course, but they also, there's surges and there's brownouts. Like it's like, imagine during the peak period and everybody's consuming electricity and there's not enough out there to service the needs properly, you get brownouts, right? Is this something that you've seen in the community as well in NEG?
I'm not too sure, like the brownout, like little outages.
No, it's like the power goes down, your lights get dimmer because there's a lot of competing demands on the electrical network. But saying that, right? When we're talking about surges and that kind of stuff, you know, one of the things that is in the discussion panel that we had, or the agenda that we set up for this evening, imagine that we do actually have a format of the topics
Yes,
we're
we
going to
do.
discuss. And one of the things that I put on there was, you know, the fact that not only are our houses aging and built in the 1900s, to a certain degree, Hydro-Quebec's infrastructure is aging, right? So are you guys in a position to talk about that? Like, for example, do you have like customer situations
I know,
where,
like for myself, just to add context, because like I
right?
saw a meme somewhere on Facebook, and I can't say their exact numbers, but it was like something to the effect of 20% of Hydro Quebec's infrastructure is new, 40% or so is in repair, and 40% of it's really bad and really needs updates. And I was like, well, I don't know a lot about that, but that seems kind of concerning. So I'm wondering, like, if you have any idea if there's any truth in that, and the level of impact of if hydro doesn't do anything, what happens to people's homes and how power gets distributed throughout the city.
You see, I can't really comment on what position that they're in. What I can do is, you know, everywhere you look, you have hydro lines throughout the city. You know, it is an aging system, but the guys are out there doing their bit to ensure that we've got power to all the homes. Yeah, I know, like Montreal it's going to have time to be able to install a whole new grid system. You know, that all takes time. It takes money. There's taxpayers' money that needs to be found. It's an expensive operation to get this going, and the fact that they're working through it, you know, we've got to grin and bear it, and they're gonna get it resolved, hopefully. You know, we have our power outages. You know, we've got a lot of beautiful trees in them streets that contribute. Trees falling over, taking out lines that affect power outages as well. You know, so all the maintenance of the trees throughout the city has to be taken care of to also provide support with the hydro side and the power outages.
And I think they are listening, right? They're investing millions upon millions into infrastructure, putting lines underground where they can. I really believe they're listening to the people, because the people, you know, there's been a lot of complaints about the infrastructure.
Okay, saying that, John, you're an NDGer, right? So here you are on the Trainman report. I'm going to ask you the question. Are you ready? Get
Yes,
ready. Do you feel there's this perception, this idea out there that NEG gets its like abnormally high level of power outages? And and like I obviously we've discussed two things. We've talked about the aging hydroelectric grid, right? And the other thing we've talked about that Robert already hit on was that we have a lot of old trees, right, in the neighborhood, right? So saying those two things, and you're an NEG, or do you believe that that perception is true, that we get more than our fair share of power outages in NEG?
Well, I do hear about it a lot.
Right. You do, eh? I'm surprised.
I'm sure,
As an electrician, it surprises me that you would hear that. Go on, I'm listening.
I'm sure like there's parts of the grid in servicing the NDG area that need upgrade.
Right.
Put yourself in their shoes. It's a big old challenge. It's a big,
Yeah.
and it is going to take time. It is going to take time, and there's a lot of
Demand is,
everywhere.
how many homes we go to now, some people have 2, 3 electric cars, and and that's a new big demand on the grid as well.
Do you find that those new demands related to electric vehicles is? Let me like just stop for a second. Let me ask you a bigger question. Like, I'm confused a little bit as a general contractor because yeah, we have these higher demands with EVs. We have these higher demands. People are heating their homes with electric. They weren't before. They were using like coal or using oil and now gas. Gas now has a bad name. Natural gas has a bad name, right? Like it's supposedly there's negative things associated with it.
Sorry, not to interject, but somebody was watching an Electrika commercial on TV while they're watching this.
So the question, but we have also like some appliances are consuming a lot less energy than they used to. Like, for example, computers, TVs. We have LED lighting now. So in your mind, though, is electrical consumption now higher than it was, say, 20, 30 years ago, or is it less? Is it like on this constant incline? What is your feedback on that?
Well, I would have to say from experience, it's on the incline.
Right.
Look at the power we're consuming today compared to 30, 40 years ago.
Right.
Stoves, everything. Stoves are people wanting stoves.
Air conditioning, all types of heating.
Electric dryers, hot water tanks, heated floors. Yeah.
And you've the cheapest electricity in North America here. And
right.
You're not as conscious about using it. I grew up in rural Ireland. If I left a light bulb on, a switch on, I get a slap across the side of the head because the cost of it, here, people are not as conscious about it. Like,
yeah, you're so right.
That's a really big point.
Even when you drive down the highway to Toronto, I lived in Toronto for 3 years, and we got the hydro bill, and I almost fell off my chair. I couldn't believe how expensive electricity was in Ontario, and even in the States. The reason why people are using gas is not because they want to. It's because electricity is so expensive. Have you heard this? Is this something you've heard?
Oh, yeah. Like I worked in the States for 15 years. And, we in Montreal, we put in a lot of 320 amp and 400 amp services.
Right.
Have we ever put them in there because of the cost of electricity?
Right. That's fair. Yeah. So let's talk about.
No, but I actually just never really considered that, right? Like, I guess because hydro Quebec, if I'm not mistaken, I've heard they literally can't use all the electricity they generate. It's like we have the opposite problem of pretty much everywhere else on the planet when it comes to power. But I never really considered that has us in NDG in Montreal being very spoiled with how we treat our homes because we don't have any constraints because, like, arguably you don't really feel it. Like, yeah, the air conditioner makes it a little worse in the summer, your bill, but it's only a little worse. It's never like a lot worse.
You're lucky. We've seen different parts of the world of what electricity costs, gas, oil costs, and yeah, definitely you're in favor here.
Yeah.
For the consumption, which opens us up to modern day technology advances. Right, we've got all the There's a large number of the EVs here. We can afford to put the EV chargers in to now power up our vehicles. They're getting bigger and bigger. They're getting faster. So there is a more of a demand on the grid with them EV chargers that are now getting bigger and bigger. But
Heated pools, spas.
yeah, but we make it.
Saunas. My wife had me install her a sauna, by the way.
Yeah,
That's like adding another stove to the house.
we get to contribute and help out that grid supply by also getting rid of them halogen lights,
Right.
burning 50-watt halogen lights.
Hate halogen lights.
Yeah.
I used to love them, but not only do they burn out and burn so much energy, they're so hot. They're dangerous.
Yeah. You mentioned hot, I mentioned dangerous, and the two and two go together. Like,
Yeah.
They heat up everything. You seen your gyprock after they've been on for a
Yeah, I have. It's scary. It's like charred. I'm surprised the house didn't burn down. I'm like shocked.
Cable above it has gone all brittle, and then to replaced it, and then you have to put in new circuits to wire, because there's no additional reconnection length on these lights.
Right.
We terminate into a nice new LED fitting.
Right.
You might have to put in another couple of switch legs.
Mm-hmm.
Between the spotlights. If you've got multiples of spotlights on the one circuit.
Right.
But the movement to LED, you're talking 4, 5, 6 watts, 7 watts a piece.
Right.
Of 50. Think about the efficiency impact that has on your electricity bill, which is already pretty good, right?
Yeah. Well, there's been an argument made that in Quebec, we're so spoiled by low electrical rates because we generate our power via hydroelectrical dams, that it's actually stunted the growth of like windmill and solar panel technology, which is a lot more ubiquitous in, say, Ontario. If you go to Ontario and you're driving down the highway, you can see these solar farms at the side of the roads. And at one point, the Ontario government was giving subsidies to farmers to put these things on their property, and they basically sell electricity back to the grid. And so there's been that criticism. But I want to go back to...
I mean, high key, though, it's a weird criticism because, like, if we have naturally clean electricity
but there's only so many rivers we can dam up there, Holden.
I mean,
but
like, I was just out in the country this weekend. They got wind farms. It's still happening. It's not
Fair
like
enough.
the projects aren't going forward. What's actually my understanding is the farmers and the people who live in the area are really the people pushing back on it because they're ugly. It's not even about utility. They just don't want to look at them. And
Fair enough.
It's it's those kinds of things. Anyway.
I've heard those criticisms. Yeah. So, but back on, like, let's talk. I want to talk through like probably an exercise or a conversation you have with a customer. I'm a customer, and I have a 200 amp panel in my house. So 200 amps, 200 amp entry, and I come to you and I say, "Hey, John, Robert, I'm buying a Tesla EV, right?" So
Tesla.
A Tesla. Did I say that? Oh, Tesla.
You said Tesla.
So I got a hot water tank in my house. I've got induction stove, right? So that's pulling 40 amps. You got the 240 for the hot water tank, right? You got the dryer. I'm heating my house with electricity. Okay, now I want an EV. Talk to me. Is it possible?
The first
calculation,
step,
load calculation.
First step that we would do is we would go to the home, listen to the customer's requests,
right?
Find out what the size of the EV charger that they're putting in,
right?
For a full home load calculation, and then we're advising the customer correctly, right? We put everything into the calculator,
right,
and then advise accordingly. If there's room there to put the car charger on, then great. It might be we can get it on the current 200 amp, and that's great. Sometimes they have to upgrade. And
what kind of load, what kind of breaker are we putting in for an EV typically? Do you know?
Like 40, 50, 60.
So it's a double 60 then.
It varies from car charger to car
Yeah.
charger.
I see.
The,
So
the breaker there is obviously to work it out. You need to first establish that the entrance is sufficient enough. The load calculation is correct.
right.
Type of cable that you put in for the EV charger,
Mhm.
and then the breaker is there to protect the cable. It's never there to protect the device at the end of it. It's there to protect the cable, but everything is suitably calculated to work out. If it's a 40 amp, you need the 40 amp cable.
Right, right.
So
And-
the cable, the breaker is always there to protect the cable.
So
And then-
saying that, excuse me, go ahead.
Yeah, just one quick point there. We have this unit, it's called DCC.
Mhm.
So just say in your home, you know, you're close to overload, but you're not there. So we can put in a unit called a DCC, which can save you money on an upgrade. And it's like, you know, when the car needs that power, it'll switch over. It's a switching mechanism that will give you the power to charge your vehicle, and then when it's charged, it will go back to. I'm trying to say in
So like it
terms.
would like restrict, like let's say like it would like block other things in the house, like maybe the dryer couldn't work right now while this switch was on because the car is getting the power instead, and then it would like have like
Charge
two
it at
modes.
night for you. It would
Right.
switch over. You can charge it at nighttime. It's a way for the client to get their electric car without going to that cost of upgrading.
So there's
In some cases you can't, and in some cases you can use it.
Okay, well let me ask you this question. A typical NEG home, right? Say I'm heating my house. I got an electric boiler, right? So Thermalec, you know the Thermalec boilers, electric boilers. You've seen those things, right? So I'm heating with electrical. I've got like the standard gamut of electrical appliances with a 200 amp in that environment, right? We're not talking HVAC because we're hot water heating. We're still using the hot water heating system, right? In that environment, right? Typically, I'm saying typically, will a 200 amp box support an EV charger? I'm just curious. I know it's a big question. Go ahead.
Yeah, you should be okay in that case.
Okay.
Yeah, because 200 amps is a lot of power once it's distributed properly. You know, that's the big thing. You know, that's why it's key when you're dealing with, you know, plumbing, electrical, heating, and air. You know, just use licensed professionals.
Right.
And you know, so that you know you're getting what you're paying for. Just you know, you got to do your research and use your licensed professional people. And
Right.
you know, I know some people don't want to cut corners, but you know, there's no shortcuts with electricity. You got to do once, do it right, and that's it.
Yeah. So another thing, as a contractor, I work with electricians, of course, and one of the things that I have to do is I have to work with you guys because, which I love doing. Especially clean electricians. You know, you guys have a reputation of being
Or you
electricians.
don't do the electrical work yourself?
No, I don't. I don't. So working with an electrician, right? You know, you're going into a house, and if you decide, okay, we're going to replace all electrical, you know, you guys got to punch holes into the walls, right? So this is where I have to come in and you know, fix the walls, right? And fix the gyprock, especially when you're dealing with the older energy homes. They're plaster and lath in many circumstances, right? It can be messy. It can get messy really quick. So, you know, saying that, you know, having the electrical replaced for the entirety of the home, this is a rather large project, right? Because invariably that gets attached with repainting probably most of the entire home, because I can't just paint a patch because it's going to be not the same color as the rest of the ceiling, right? So is this relatable to you guys? Do you see that on a regular basis?
It's a skill. Rewiring a home is a skill.
Right.
So we do a lot of it. You got to have the right tools and
Right.
bits, and you know, there's a certain way to do it to limit the cost of the cosmetic work.
Yes.
and looking after customers' homes. You know, just the fact of putting down all that prevention, you know, the drop sheets, covering all the
Respect.
furnitures with plastic overthrows. Every single way you work, we make the mess, you clean up, you move,
Right.
you go to the next spot.
Right.
We have a good understanding. Like you say, we're in the training room with all our guys, the HVAC, the customer service, the electricians. Everybody's in training on our premises every single day, and it's from technical, health and safety, presentation, customer service. We're always updating our employees with training and having a good understanding of how a house is put together. Actually, is all part and parcel of being a good electrician, because
It
you
is.
know, when everything's covered with gyprock or, like you say, latten plaster, you cut holes in that latten plaster, the wall has gone weak. You know, you need to take them lats out with a 4-inch hole to make your access. The wall goes weak, and where we drill these holes is and to minimize where these holes are drilled. It's nice to know where how buildings are put together, so you're not doing massive amounts of damage, which is inevitably having an effect on the customer having to put the repair in. You know. That goes a long way with us. You know, we're all very experienced, highly qualified guys at Electrika, and you know, like you say, we've been in this business for a long time.
Just to clarify for the less listeners, HVAC relates to heating, ventilation, and
Cooling.
air conditioning, right? HVAC, and the majority of the homes, that's a ducting heating system. So you'd have a heater, furnace in the basement, and a lot of times that's combined with a thermal pump that grabs the cool or the hot air from, you know, the air outside, and actually, believe it or not, there's heat in the air that can be extracted in the depths of winter, and that reduces your costs. But HVAC systems are rare in NEG because the fact of the matter is that the majority of the NEG homes were built during the time when we used radiant hot water heating systems, right? So when you go to an NEG home, most times the furnace will be it could be electric, could be gas, old school. It's oil for those who haven't converted.
Yeah.
That's real old school. Every time I see an oil heating system, I tell the customer, you know, you got to get out of this as quickly as you can. First of all, there's the cost, and then there's liability of having this huge, massive gas tank of diesel fuel in your basement, right? And yeah, so I just wanted to clarify that for your listeners. And then talking to you, like as a contractor, it's funny that we're having this conversation because this happens, right? You get unqualified electricians that get into the houses and they start making holes in plaster and glass, and they're using sawzalls, and the sawzall is vibrating the wall. and what it's doing is it's the plaster, the old school plaster. It's not like, you know, these composite wall boards they make today. It's actually was trawled on into like thin strips of wood, and the plaster kind of seep between the strips, and that's how it holds itself to the wall. But what happens is after 100 years, it's dry, and if someone shakes that, it basically the whole plaster disconnects from the lath completely, and you have no choice but to replace it completely.
Yeah.
But you know, in all like
So all that to say, your cheap electricians will cut holes in your wall that'll force you to have to replace your wall.
yeah, and then if they don't know what they're doing, what they start doing too is they start drilling holes in the crown moldings.
And then you have to replace even more home.
The crown moldings are really not easy to fix. So if you're dealing with an experienced electrician, he knows that. Is this a correct statement?
Yes, it is. Yeah, it's like I said, rewiring a home is an art.
Right.
You know, there's a way to minimize the cosmetic work.
Yeah, all the rods that we utilize, the fish tapes that we strategically drill a hole in this corner, and on the other side of the room, we'll drill a hole in the other corner.
Right.
We were trying to fish and snake through underneath, you know, the lat to get over to the other side to minimize that damage. So, and it's funny because you could drill some holes, your main run for the holes. If you can come down in that run to switches and outlets, you probably can then go up So your main backbone of the holes that come from your panel to one side of the house would be one stretch. Most of that then is accessible from upstairs and downstairs, you know? So we try to utilize these runs so you can take advantage of wiring upstairs and downstairs all from the same kind of run structure, which again,
Yeah. You guys have all these cool tools. Like electricians have these very long, very thin, almost like
Real
metal
bit.
rods that you feed through the walls, and you can pull wires through with that. And then you have drill bits that are like, you know, 6 feet long, and you can bend them.
Yeah.
So you can drill through joists continuously, right? To pull that wire down the wall to
Yeah, 'cause
minimize the damage, right?
like drilling blind as well, because that could open us up
Yeah.
for damage. We don't know what's on the other side of the joist, right? It could be pipes.
I missed that. You said what?
So when you're drilling blind through
Yeah.
joists,
Yeah.
you know, you never know what's on the other
Never
side.
know, especially an old house.
It's a gamble, and
Yeah.
again, we try to avoid that as much as possible.
How do you do that? How do you avoid that?
I mean, if you can get one hole on one side and another hole on the other, or you drill on the joist, you
Right.
can come underneath the joist at that point instead of so you can see both sides of the joist.
Right. Right.
Right. There's various different ways that we can go about that. Sometimes you do, and the way that you penetrate at the outside of that joist, just as you're coming through, you're not leaning on it to drive it through. You just let the drill bit do its work, and you let
Yes.
it through. You know, trying to minimize any risk.
You guys must go through a lot of drill bits. I tell you, in old houses, there's nails galore.
And one important thing as well, when you rewire a home, like, you know, we've gone to homes where the client thinks their home is rewired, and you know, you have to remove all the old boxes. They're ungrounded. You have to install new grounded boxes. And you know, we've gone to homes where the ungrounded boxes are still in the wall and the new wire is in the old box.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
so
Through a
that's
complete system.
yes.
And
Yeah.
the connectors are not proper. They're not the code, right? Because they're
Yeah.
older boxes, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's key.
I see that. Yeah, I see that.
Yeah.
My what the box, just so if people are listening, when we're talking about a box,
The
when
vice
you
box.
yeah, you have like a plug, right? And when you remove the faceplate off that plug, there's actually a metal box in the wall that holds all the electrical components. So if there's a spark, it doesn't light your house on fire. It's part of the code. It doesn't always have to be metal. It can be plastic. I've seen that in the States. I don't like the plastic ones. I prefer metal for obvious reasons. And they have them for the ceiling too, for light fixtures, right? And that's always my nightmare. I know I know the customer had work or poor work done in their houses when I open one of those old boxes and I see the the old knob and tube wire sticking out, and they have Moretz and they connected it to a new Lumix, wire, and they got it going somewhere else. Oh my God. I'm concerned. But I want to talk about, bring the conversation back to trees. Because I know my neighbor across the street, she called you guys because she had this big tree in front of her house, and there was a big storm, and a branch fell out and just took out her entry. I mean, it just took it out. It just ripped those wires out, cut her completely from the electrical grid. She had no power, so you guys had to come and reconnect her. I'm just curious, how big of an issue is that in NEG? Is that like when you're dealing with entries and stuff like that? Is that a large part of your calls? Is like dealing with damage from, when it comes to entries, of course, damage dealt with from falling branches and trees?
Yeah, well, so a lot of our call outs, especially with the storms we had. I did a little bit of digging back to our service manager about the damage of trees, and he remembers in 2017, I might be wrong, August 2017, we've got a picture of 8 of our vans in one street in NDG just replacing service entrances. It was all hands on deck. Yeah, August 2017 I've got here.
And that was because of trees.
all
Alex, you
tre-
don't remember that? I happened. That was a very unforgettable day. I happened to pick up my bicycle that day, and I have
Was
to
that is that
cycle
when
through
we had
NDG
that? Is that when we had that? What are they?
microburst.
Microburst. That was it, right? That's
It
when
was like a war zone. I
they
know that
blew
like
away
it's.
Gerard Park. Yeah, yeah.
I know like it's
I
like
wasn't
you there
here.
was no straight path home. Every like you drive and then it would be
I remember
trees
it
and
well.
things blocking up everywhere. Oof.
I,
Big
I,
times.
I wasn't here, but I saw the picture today,
Mhm.
and yeah, oh my word,
Yeah,
that
but
thing.
yeah, but what about today? What about in your regular? Like we had a storm recently, right? But not a big one, but we had one.
Last year, I mean, we had the freeze storm, right? I was here.
Right.
April 7th or 9th or something.
Yeah,
And you get and you got a lot of calls related to the trees as well.
soon we have obviously our emergency call out service,
Right.
365 days a year.
Right.
We
Which I just want to point out to everybody's listening to the show. You
we're
know, the emergency services are available of electricians, but if you can avoid it, I suggest that you do because they can be expensive,
good to be fair.
especially on the weekends.
No, same rate, same
What's
rate,
that?
the same rate, and it's a very good rate. You
Oh
think,
my God, you guys don't have an emergency rate?
no, we
do, yeah.
we do. We have an emergency rate, but it's the same rate for the weekend, same rate for 3 o'clock in the morning, or
Oh, okay.
and it's a fair one. It's a fair
Okay,
one.
fair enough. Fair enough.
We've got to pay our lads door to door.
To
Yeah.
be fair, if you do want to get an electrician at 3 in the morning for whatever reason, you probably should pay more for that privilege because
I
mean,
agree.
it's
I
3 in the
agree.
morning.
I agree. Yeah.
Our guys, you know, everything is about treating your people right. Our guys are paid, you know, they get paid double time once they leave their home till they return because, you know, they got to leave their families and leave their supper and
The
everything
comfort.
to do the emergency.
Yeah.
Fair enough. But on that note, back on the trees, this fascinates me. So you were talking about there was a year ago there was the ice or something there,
It was May, I think, beginning of May,
right?
or was it 2023? We had that ice storm and all the trees came down. Fascinating to see, but caused a lot of damage, to a lot of disruption. We saw a big increase in people wanting to take matters into their own hand and needed backup support. You know, in the event of these, you know, the weather's meant to be getting more turbulent out there, unpredictable. So a lot of people wanted their own generators. So
Yeah.
we installed generators. We're Generac approved installers.
Yeah.
Soon to be one of the only maintenance firms in Montreal for Generac. And there was a big boom for generators. People wanted to take that.
My neighbor got one. I'm not happy about it because when the power goes off,
Noise.
right? The noise, right? And yeah, I'm
But they've
I'm
come
not-
a long way with
Yeah.
the noise.
I'm not a big fan of them. And the same thing, we have a cottage up and we're at the end of the street in the middle of nowhere. It's we're the last people to get power at the cottage.
How many
And
kilowatt has your neighbor got? Maybe we can supply you with a bigger one.
yeah, just to annoy them. and yeah, and
And then
you know,
Alex's neighbors across the street will need
Yeah.
to get an even bigger one.
yeah, even knew it's like I'm just gonna be. You're gonna start a war here. I know what you guys are up to. So saying that at the cottage, when the power goes out, everybody's got a generator, and it's like you go up there for serenity and peace, and the power goes out, and all you hear until the power goes back on is just those generators. Like, but up there it's all gas, right? So they're loud, and they don't have Generac. I tell you that much.
Decibel rating on Generac is good. Yeah.
I would imagine that. But saying that, so you know, one of the items I have here on the agenda is like what I notice about you know, compared to European environment and many other environments, like a lot of the electrical grid is underground. Ours is like up in display, right? It's up on these poles. The wires are like very much exposed. We have an NEG, we have a lot of old trees, and you've already mentioned the challenges with that. Considering global warming, the increase in severity of the storms and stuff like that, how well prepared are we as a community to endure like these storms going forward? Is this like like John was talking about, making those massive infrastructure investments? Is that part of the package? Is like going like having the entries underground and stuff like that?
Well, one thing we're doing more and more, you have, if you see those old tripods, those metal tripods on the roofs.
Right.
Plateau, there's a lot.
Yeah, and in many neighborhoods, but the thing is now, as much as possible, Hydro want them eliminated and want the wires and conduits so that, when there's excessive high winds, you're not subject for them to be falling over. So we're eliminating them a lot now.
They're not the code anymore, are they? These tripods on top of the
in
house.
some cases,
Well, okay, wait, let's stop. I'm sorry, John. For
Yeah.
people who are listening, what happens is sometimes they put like these triangle structures on top of the roof, and the entry wire actually goes on these things over people's roofs to connect with the entry that's sometimes in the back of the house. And these are very dangerous because if they topple over and these live wires come in contact with the house lights on fire. Am I getting this right?
Yes, yeah, we've encountered that. So that's why, as much as possible, Hydro want them eliminated.
Right. So when you go see a client that has that, what happens?
Well, we'll provide them with their options, and some people just can't afford to eliminate them.
Yeah, well, we put a plan in process. We've got payment options for people.
Right.
There's a number of ways of how we can go about financing these issues, these costs. But for me, seeing these things when we visit homes, we do like free 12-point inspections with every service that's completed, and we check the panel, we check to make sure everything's torqued to the right setting on everything on the panel. Yourself, you ever gone to tighten up anything in the panel or on an outlet or a switch after a number of years with no maintenance? You can quarter turn everything in that panel.
I've never done that in my life. I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm sure you have. But over time terminations with the AC current on and off, it sends a
Right.
virus down the cable. So it slowly backs off all the terminations. So we do these 12-point inspections. We tighten everything all up. We will verify the service entrance. We bring these sort of things, these concerns that we have as professionals. It's our duty to highlight these things to our customers, let them make an informed decision. They may want to do it. If we see something like their entrance, the mast needs a couple more brackets, or maybe they need a stainless mast putting in for the snow support, everything, we would bring that to their attention, and we can fix these up. So when we do have these storms, they're given it the best possible chance that their service entrances are going to stay intact. But like having a 2-ton tree fall onto your lines, something's going to give, isn't it? You just
and so let's say the Hydro Quebec decides you can't have that triangle thing, so they just change the rules, and now you just gotta go pay electricians to fix it, and that's just what comes with owning a home.
Yeah.
Yes. Unfortunately, yes. Yeah.
That's wild.
Just you got to go with it.
But that happens in the plumbing too, right? You got to replace a lot of the energy homes have the old ones. The original pipes were like these galvanized pipes. These things are all rusted out. They're like a flood waiting to happen if you don't deal with them, right?
And preventive maintenance. You got to do preventive maintenance.
I that's where I gotta differ with you and John. I think replacing your drains and replacing your pipes or your electrical grid, This is not preventive maintenance. It's like it's end of life, right? It's like this happens in the plaster too, right? You get the plaster and lath walls, and it's end of life. You can't save it. The only option is to just replace it completely, right?
Well,
And
we talked
that,
about the tube just a second ago. We come
yeah,
across that, replace. That's there's
yes, exactly. There's no maintenance there.
Yeah,
preventative maintenance for us is where we are going in there. You know, you got outlets that you do a tension test on, and
Right,
you've got to plug something in the outlet, and it is almost hanging out already. Well,
right,
you know, you're creating a short circuit potential there, and if you've got short circuits and arcing, then you got heat, and then you got potential for fire, right?
exactly. Yes,
All our homes are made out of timber. You
they
know,
are.
timber
Yeah,
there, very dry,
there's a lot of timber in those homes. That's for sure. In
very dry.
NEG homes. Yeah,
Know? So inspections, having your home inspected,
right.
check the electrical systems, check the grounding of your system. You can have a brand new panel that's been put in, 200 amp service. If your grounding system hasn't been checked and it hasn't been verified,
Mm,
like tested, verified,
mhm.
yeah, the resistance on the ground, if that's not within a certain reading, then your breakers that are on the panel will not trip in the prescribed manufacturer's time.
Right. They'll overheat.
There's no
Yeah,
point on the panel if the grounding system is not up
yeah.
to speed, you know. So all these things need to be checked, and
absolutely.
we've got 2 or 3 different inspections at different levels, different costs,
Hmm.
providing them a 12-point visual inspection free of
Hmm.
charge with all our services that are being carried out, because we want to go to people's homes
Right.
and leave there knowing that the home is a safer than what we arrived in it.
Right.
Excellent. So I think we're coming to a conclusion of this show, and I think that what I want to say is I want to thank both John and you, Robert, for joining us today, and also signal our listeners that if you're looking for somebody to do quality electrical work, Electrika is definitely a place to go. John and Robert are members of an organization that's been around in the neighborhood for some time. I've seen their work. It's quality work. They do things right. They do it right the first time. So definitely, they live up to that reputation. That's for sure, for sure.
Well,
And
to provide, we're happy to be here to service our fellow Montreal people, and
well, we don't care about Montreal. We only care about
Oh no,
NEG.
I have one question before we
Just so
go.
you're clear on the subject.
I had Nick
We're
one
very
question.
we're very like selfish
Hold
in
on.
that area. Yes,
See,
go ahead, there.
Alex is saying that, but I got wild curious because Alex was like brought up. Do you get the complaints that NDG is more blackouts than other people? But you guys probably have some actual like experience going around the whole city. Is there areas that get more blackouts than NDG in your opinion, or is NDG actually the worst in your opinion without being like on the record?
Yes.
No, there's wherever you have old infrastructure, there's more places than NDG with old infrastructure.
Mm. So
Yeah,
fair enough.
John's being very diplomatic about this. I can see.
Well, I
But that's fine. That's
like,
fine.
there is more, yes, NDG, but there is more places too with a lot of issues with the old infrastructure.
Yeah,
Few
old
people out
infrastructure,
there.
old trees, right?
Yeah.
It's a double whammy here, but
And the trees are beautiful. Like when you
they
drive down
are.
the streets in the summer, we love the trees in NDG.
And it saves us on AC costs because they help cool our houses down, right? So there is a positive side to having the trees are beautiful. It gives
You always
foliage.
got to find a positive.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean, what do you think about battery storage? I'm throwing it over to you.
What do I think about battery storage? Storage of electrical energy using batteries? I think it's an interesting idea, the interesting concept. I think it's still a relatively new technology. I think the price will come down. I know Tesla has a model they've been, putting out there. People say that with that type of technology, you can consume power, like store power at lower, like, the off period, or what they call the
Peak.
lesser, what do you call it? What's the
Off peak
In
hours.
Europe, we have
off peak? There it is, off peak hours, right?
off peak and on peak hours. So
And what do you think about battery technology?
I think, yeah, I think it's definitely the future. I think that could balance up the grid and help the grid a little bit. You've got, if you could charge up battery cells in the nighttime when the grid is less demand,
Right,
you wake up in the morning and you can run your home off of a battery, or
right.
a good proportion of your home off the battery, which takes the pressure off of them demanding times for hydro. I think that could work out really well. I think you just got to have that off
But
peak.
there's a lot involved in that, because you got to be careful, right? Like when you're using generators or using battery technology, and you're throwing electricity back into your house, you got to make sure that you're not throwing it back into the electrical grid, especially if it's off, because you got the linesman up the post, right? You're expecting the wires to be dead, and you're shooting juice back up there, right?
I think quite a lot of solar in my time, and the technology that is there now,
Right.
the devices there, they're like the inverters and things. Soon as they sense that there's no power from the grid, within milliseconds, the power is
They
turned
shut it off,
off.
because that was before it. That was pretty. They had to install like a separate panel and all this other technology.
Back home is the G99.
Yeah,
Uh,
now we're talking too technical, Robert. Let's get back to let's get
oh,
down.
yeah,
But you're saying that with the new battery technology, they've dealt with that issue. Is that what you're saying?
I would have thought so. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Says
it
there's
seems like this is the type of thing that's only going to get better too. So, like, there's a lot of reasons to invest in better batteries. And there's a lot of people working on that problem. And I know that the current battery iteration has some issues with it, but in theory, once we break the next generation of batteries, it's going to be a completely different game.
Yeah, but just so I don't want to be negative, but I guess I will be. Just remember that we're really hybrid, like we're really focused right now, as the world, I should say, is focused on carbon-based energy sources, oil burning. We're basically burning stuff, right? Be it oil, be it wood, be it coal. That's been our main source of energy. And now, if we're going to batteries, right, we go full scale with batteries, there's going to be a whole set of problems with that as well, because we have to figure out ways to recycle those batteries. But it's better than burning stuff. Granted, I get it. But like, just for example, they want to make a mine for graphite up in have you heard about this?
No,
I have a friend that does who lives here, who does yeah, test holes
I
for
see.
different minerals throughout the country, and I did hear something like that.
Like up in Lac Simon area, they want to build a big, massive graphic mine up there, and they want to mine I think it's graphite. What is it? Graphite. Excuse me. Thank you. Graphite. And now the Pentagon is investing in there. People, why is the Pentagon investing in a graphite mine? And the reason why I raise it is because we're going to have to come to terms with the changes that entails, and there'll be costs associated with it. It's not going to be free, right?
Well,
So
absolutely. And like, even with just say it with current battery technology, if I'm not mistaken, it costs more electricity to charge a battery. It's not like a one-to-one thing. Like, there is an additional demand that goes into the recharging process, and like, it's not the most eco-friendly solution. So if everybody just jumped on batteries with existing battery technology, we'd ultimately use more, like, we'd have some problems unless it was implemented perfectly, but we would still have problems at scale. But like, they are in the process, if I'm not mistaken, of inventing some new kind of battery. I forgot if it's with salt or some other something like that, but like, they're in the middle of coming up with what should be the next iteration of battery tech that moves past the lithium ions and all that. So like, given that happens, we could be in a situation where it's actually pretty good to pursue battery technology at
Oh, it's the
scale.
future. We're not going to. We will. It's going to happen. But on that note, yes,
Technological advances, we're always going forward, right?
yeah.
Look how far we've come from having the iPhone. You know, it wasn't that long ago we all had 3210s. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm in the construction business, and look at all the tools that we have that are battery operated. 20 years ago, that was unimaginable, right? We're walking around with I'm walking around with battery operated hammer drills.
We got chainsaws and vacuums and
It's crazy.
battery, right?
It's crazy. Yeah, the way it's moved, it's insane. So it's all very positive. But on that note, I want to thank you, both you and John, or John and Robert, for joining us. And I hope that when we do have like that crisis in NEG, we can call upon you guys and maybe have the CNN crisis center. Okay, back to you, John. We seem to be having problems up on the Terrebonne with some trees that fell down.
Over to Rob.
Yeah, over to Rob live on site. We can. Go ahead.
If you got any good men out there, let us know.
All right, and we'll have the other contractors involved as well. We have the electricians, the plumbers, and it'll be like a great a crisis center, like a CNN mock off or something like that. It'll be a lot of fun, right? Well, maybe it won't be that fun. Maybe it'll be a total mess. But hey, we're a community and we get through. And I never asked you the question though, Robert. Do you live in NEG? No, he doesn't.
Tell you on episode 31.
All right, here we go. All right, he's a mystery man. Like it. All right, like it. So I want to thank you for being on the show. And I always tell all my guests this: we're trying to build something here, a community network, right? And it's a long-term project. So I hope in the future, when we're going to ask you to come back again, that will happen. I promise you.
Yes.
I hope you guys are available because it probably we're definitely going to have a storm. It's going to happen, right? It's just nature, right? Stuff happens, and maybe we'll have another microburst, and it would be great to have you guys back in the show talking about challenges.
More microbursts. That was really scary.
Yes, it was. To you, Holden.
Just make sure you can get them listeners of yours who are listening in. Tell them to give us a call.
I will. Absolutely. And you guys can tell them to call me to clean up the mess that you made. Well, excuse me, not the mess, the holes that you made to pass the wires. I apologize. I didn't mean it that way.
We need to proof your work, by the way, first, obviously.
Of course.
Right.
I wouldn't expect anything less.
Awesome.
I would not expect anything less. All right.
Appreciate
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Appreciate everyone watching who was with us live. It means the world that you're here with us. Make sure to tell everybody about the show because the only way we can really grow is with people telling other people, as we are NDG based. Nobody's Googling for this. So y'all have to help us out and spread the word and become our street team, as they say. Feel free to like, comment, and subscribe and all that good stuff because, it helps. And, thank y'all for coming in. I know it might seem like a little random, but our goal is to try to contextualize stuff that is affecting the lives of NDG people and, power and electricity, and it's real topics that nobody really focuses that much on, but we're just trying to learn and grow with that. So thank you for coming and sharing with us. It means a lot.
It was amazing. It was electric. Thank you so much.
Appreciate everyone else watching out there, and live long and prosper, everyone.